I know one person. Yeah, Stan,
Hey, Paul, nice to you.
I see you too.
How about the front of the church, huh? It makes me glad I usually have gone at the ramp. I had,
I know it, I know it.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to reschedule. It works
No, there's a stone. Imagine the way it looked.
Oh, and they, he was saying that was the foundation. It wasn't any mortar. It was, they were just held up by the wood sitting on those stones. So that if you look out there now, he's building some boxes where they're going to pour some concrete, and short up a little bit since the technology is advanced.
A little bit, just a little bit.
But our house in Guilford this last year came around because in the foundation, it was just sitting on stones. It was a 1795 house that had been a schoolhouse on the green. They moved it with a team of oxen, like rolled it on logs, put it where it is now, and just put it on top of stones. So the guy came in and filled in all the stones and closed it up because we had lots of little critters.
I'm sure.
So our mouse problems have dropped way off since we closed Disneyland. And, I figured like, just look, we can get under here, So, but it's fascinating to think, and with way fewer tools. So, when I was in Ireland last summer, I went up to the town of Derry up in the north. And the old city there is a walled city. And it was all the way around about, I think, about a mile and a half to walk all the way around. And the top of the wall was wide enough, wider than our road stairs here, where you can walk. Right? The stone wall is all four that they built, I think, the 14 windows. And they built the whole thing in 2 years. And I said, I've watched them build me Dunkin' Donuts in Guilford, and it took 15 years. It's just like, there's not a, or watch them repair a highway bridge. They didn't have any motorized equipment. So sit down because they're about.
Morning.
Morning. My goodness, we filled up the place. Way to go. Great to see you this morning. Thank you for adapting. When there's been discussion about repairing the stairs, and the folks working on it said, hey, we can do that now, and I came to work on Tuesday, and the stairs were gone. I was like, oh, okay. So we're starting that now. All right, good. So, or Wednesday morning, I guess. We talked about it on Tuesday, so if you didn't get a chance to walk around front and look close, do that, and you'll be very glad that we moved quickly on it. So thank you to Anna, the trustees, all of those that have been involved in getting these things lined up to get this done. Probably what that means is, at least for a couple of Sundays, we will meet in here. Primarily, well, one, right now there's not a porch, so we can't get in the front door. We could go in the side, but that would make it where it wasn't accessible to anyone. And so that's why the main reason that we moved over here is because we don't have to go up any stairs to get in this building. So we'll be here until they put that all back together again, which will be fun to see happen over the next couple of weeks. Thanks also to everybody that worked to make this get moved over here. Aaron was great in kind of negotiating some of the logistics. The folks that have the contra dance group that uses our hall a great deal on Saturday nights were kind enough to set the chairs up for us last night after they finished dancing. And Leon has done this technological masterpiece of getting the camera moved over so that we can still do the streaming. And someone's not standing back there holding my iPhone, filming the thing. And thanks to Val for providing our worship music today as a part of our summer music series. Everybody that's working on coffee hour. We may have the highest attendance at coffee hour we've had in a while, so because everybody can just walk right over there. But it's good to be here and on this beautiful day, and grateful that we have the means to be able to take care of our facilities and to get this work done and keep that lovely building safe and secure. So, are there any other announcements this morning that I'm missing? Great. Then let's take a moment, and we're all a little closer today. You can even turn and say hi to the person next to you. Pass the peace of Christ. And then let us call ourselves to worship. We gather today to worship the God who created us,
The God who calls us,
the God who equips us,
the God who loves us without end.
with joyful hearts. Let us worship our God. And we'll do that in singing When Morning Gilds the Skies. All the hymns are in your worship guide today so that we didn't have to carry hymnals back and forth. So let's stand together and sing. That was all the intro. Now we're starting. The sky is far away. day you got to say you said the words discordant and conquered. I love that line. Discordant humankind, in this your conquered find. Let us join together in our prayer of invocation. When our hearts are hard, O God, soften them with your love. When our hands are clenched, O God, open them with your grace. When our feet are planted too firmly, O God, invite us to dance. When we forget that our lives are not our own, remind us that we live and move and have our being in you. Amen.
Scripture reading is Mark chapter 13, verses 30 to 44. The apostles returned to Jesus and told him everything they had done and taught. Many people were coming and going, so there was no time to eat. He said to the apostles, "Come by yourselves to a secluded place and rest for a while." They departed in a boat by themselves for a deserted place. Many people saw them leaving and recognized them, so they ran ahead from all the cities and arrived before them. When Jesus arrived and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. Then he began to teach them many things. Late in the day, his disciples came to him and said, "This is an isolated place, and it's already late in the day. Send them away so that they can go to the surrounding countryside of the villages and buy something to eat for themselves." He replied, "You give them something to eat." But they said to him, "Should we go off and buy bread worth almost 8 months' pay and give it to them to eat?" He said to them, "How much bread do you have? Take a look." After checking, they said, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. He directed the disciples to see all the people in groups as they were having a banquet on the green grass. They sat down in groups of hundreds and 50s. He took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looked up to heaven, blessed them, broke the loaves into pieces, and gave them to his disciples to set before the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all. Everyone ate until they were full. They filled 12 baskets with the leftover pieces of bread and fish. About 5,000 men had eaten.
God grant us wisdom and understanding of this passage. One of the many books that I have on my shelf is one called The Art of Noticing by a man named Rob Walker. And it's exactly what the title said. It's a book about learning how to notice things, how to pay better attention. Most of the book is filled with exercises that are designed to help you notice what you might not have seen before. And often those exercises have to do with paying attention to the things that we see over and over. One exercise, for instance, says to take the same walk every day for at least a week. Go down the same streets, make the same turn, but focus intentionally on something different each time. Like, look at the different barks on the trees as you walk. Take a minute to notice how they're different. Or notice the cracks in the sidewalks, or look at the front doors of the houses you go by, or the different shapes of leaves, or whatever you decide. That particular exercise fascinates me because of how often I see something that I've seen many, many times and think, well, I've walked by that place who knows how many times, and I've never noticed that before. You ever had that experience? When I was a youth minister in Texas, I walked into our church sanctuary one day while the organist was practicing. She had been at the church at least 20 years by that time, but the sanctuary had only been there about a decade. And as I was doing whatever I was doing, she motioned to me to come over where she was, and I went over and she pointed. They had big stained glass windows on either side, and she pointed at the window that was across from her, and she says, "What do you notice about that window?" So I sat there looking and trying to figure out what she was talking about, and it took me a couple of minutes, but after a minute I saw at the very top on one of the metal bars that went across in the window, there was a roll of masking tape, of painter's tape, sitting sideways on the thing so you could just see the little circle. And I pointed it out, and then she smiled and said, "That's been there since the first Sunday we came into this building, and I'm the only one that's ever noticed it." And I served that church 6 years, and when I left, that tape was still in the window. Well, I have to say my experience with this week's scripture is a little like looking at the window. I have both heard and preached a number of sermons on what we call the feeding of the 5,000. I don't know if you knew this, but it's the only story of Jesus' life outside of the events that take place during Passion Week. It's the only story in Jesus' life that's told in all 4 Gospels. From a preaching standpoint, what that means is it's the only story that shows up in every lectionary cycle. So, at least once a year. So you've probably heard a bunch of sermons on it too. In the years since my father died, I've come to read the story mostly as a grief story, or a story that takes place in the wake of grief, because right before Jesus fed the crowd, John the Baptist was beheaded by Herod. And in Luke and Matthew and Mark, John's disciples come to tell Jesus that he has been killed. And Jesus keeps trying to get away by himself from the crowd. And they keep following. And I've always read it that he keeps trying to get away because he's grieving. He lost someone he cared about deeply, and he just needs a little time. And the people keep coming until finally they're where they need to be fed. He was caught in the tension between the death of someone he dearly loved and the needs of the people around him, his responsibilities. And that's the way that this story has been meaningful to me. I get that. I'm sure you do too. But Mark tells, even though Mark tells about John's death in the verses right in front of this story, he doesn't say anything about anyone telling Jesus about it. Instead, he says that the disciples returned from their journeys that we talked about last week, where they went out in pairs, with their stories to tell about who they met and what they did. And Jesus says, "Hey, with all your stories, let's get out of town and go where we can be by ourselves and you can get some rest." And so they get in a boat and go across the Sea of Galilee. So when we say sea, it's a big lake. And maybe not that big because, or maybe their boat was really, really slow, but they stayed in eyesight of the people on the shore. And while they're trying to get across the thing, everybody else just ran around the shore. And by the time they got to the other side, it's like, "Hey, we're here!" But it also meant they were all on the other side of the lake from, the shops and restaurants and houses that they knew. And they were out in the middle of a field. So Jesus took the chance and seemed to be enjoying the chance to teach them, because he saw them as kind of lost. It says he thought they looked like sheep without a shepherd. The disciples, as Jesus kept talking, became more and more concerned that it was getting close to dinner time, and they had this huge crowd, and they wondered where the food was going to come from. Maybe they thought the crowd was a lot like me, that when they start getting hungry, they get surly, that just the crowd was going to turn on Jesus at some point. But they didn't know how they were going to pay for it. As Heidi read, when Jesus says, feed them, I said that would cost 8 months' wages. And they just felt like they were in the middle of a situation that there was no way what they had was going to be enough. So he asked them to see what food they could find, and they came back with the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. No little boy in Mark's version. And then comes the part that I hadn't noticed before, that caught me. It says that Jesus told them to recline, to have it. Our English translations sometimes make it sound like Jesus said, everybody sit down, but the word that he used is the word you would say when you were asking someone to sit down at the dinner table. And in the Middle East, they laid down at the dinner table on their side, a lot like my schnauzers drink out of their water bowl. It's kind of, they just laid down. So he uses that word like they were at an inside dinner table. Tell everybody to sit down and get ready for dinner. To act like it was time to eat. But they were in the middle of a pasture. It says they were all in the middle of green grass, which is the second thing that struck me, because I've always imagined them being out in the desert. But if you look, it's like, and again, not to beat you up with too much Greek, the word in Greek means verdant. It was like a thriving pasture, which is where the farm animals ate, right? And then he told them to get in groups of 50 or 100. And the Greek word there is the word for like an outside banquet or garden party. So that's what struck me. All of the disciples are completely consumed by their sense of scarcity. And Jesus responds abounding in hospitality, using all these images like, tell everybody to get ready for a big garden party. We're going to have some fun now. Right? Well, what Mark describes in a couple of sentences must have taken a while. Because we know there were at least 5,000 people. And, even with this group, if I just said, let's all move into the parlor, it would happen in longer time than just a couple of sentences. So, disciples must have moved through the crowd, telling people, giving the instructions, telling folks what was going to happen. And I wonder, as they said to folks, get ready for dinner, if maybe that's part of what set the miracle in motion. Jesus took the food he had and blessed it, and the disciples started handing it out. And I guess what I picture is as people began to hear Jesus' words about how he talked about hospitality and to see his motions, if they began to say, well, I've got something I can share. And pulling out what they had, and then that's when the party really started. But whatever happened, everybody ate well, and they had baskets of leftovers. And I've always noticed that part because I was raised to notice mealtime by my mother. Right before my family, as you know, I grew up in Africa and lived there till I was 16. Right before my family was moving back to the States permanently, my mother said to my brother and I know our lives are about to change dramatically. What is it about what we do as a family here? What family traditions do you most want to keep when we get to America? And my brother and I both said, having dinner together. Because that was what we did. Actually, we pretty much ate breakfast and dinner together every day. In part because my mother made a big deal out of any meal. If we were going to have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, she would not allow you to just take the peanut butter jar and the jelly jar and put them on the table with a couple of knives in them. She would get little bowls, and you scooped it out, and you put out plates, and you sat down and you made the sandwich like a normal person. But it also meant that even a quick snack became a memory, because we took time to be at the table. And that's what my brother and I were asking for. And so when we got to Houston, my brother was the athlete, I was more the choir and drama guy. And so some days we ate early because there was play practice, and some days we ate late because there was a game. But either way, my mom negotiated everybody's schedule so that more nights than not, we still sat down together at the dinner table. In my 20s, I went through a period where my parents and I were fairly estranged from each other. We had some hard times communicating. And I really think the leftovers, the memories of those meals, were what kept me connected to them, even when I didn't know how to say so. Because eventually we found our way back to each other and created more stories around the table. One of the ways to notice the words we say at the communion table, when Jesus says, we quote Jesus saying is, as often as you do this, remember me, is that Jesus wasn't just talking about the sacrament, but was talking about any time we gather around food. As often as you do that, put yourselves back together in my name. We're invited to hear Jesus' words of invitation and anticipation, to act like it's about to become a banquet, that we're coming to a party. Whether we're sharing communion or eating lunch at Luce, or enjoying our snacks at coffee hour, or heating up leftovers at home. Now remember that the disciples had just come back from their travels, and Jesus sent them out saying to them, well, go where you're welcomed. And when you're welcome, stay there. And if you're not welcome, move on. And now they stood in the middle of this beautiful green field, watching Jesus tell 5,000 people that they had a place at the table, even when it looked like there wasn't enough to go around. We don't run out of the love of God. I hope we keep noticing that and joining the party over and over again. Amen. Our next hymn, actually last Sunday when Sally and Diane played It Is Well With My Soul, we haven't sung that in a while. So let's sing now together, When Peace Like a River. Please remain seated as we sing.
Sorrow
Together, are there joys and concerns you would share this morning? Nancy.
I have a joy. A couple weeks ago, I asked you to pray for our son's friend Chris. While his health has not changed, his life circumstances have, and he is now able to continue his career in a way that his health allows him to. So for that, we are grateful.
We are grateful. Thank you, Nancy. And our prayers continue for you as well. Are there anyone else? We remember those also who are on the prayer list that are listed in our order of service: Chris Lewis, Maria Coffin, Carol Fitzsimmons, Marilyn Bronson, Carl Paulette, Amos Hewitt, Rhonda Krasinski, and Gil Spencer. As we hold all of those names in our hearts, and then those which we have not mentioned, let's take a moment in silence, and then I'll close our prayer. Loving God, we are grateful for your presence, for your hospitality, for your unending love. As we say the names of those whom we know are hurting, we hold in our hearts the names of others as we celebrate even small victories. Remind us that no matter what our circumstance, we are still tethered to you and your unending love. All these things we pray in the name of the one who taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. As we have brought our request to God, now we bring our offerings to share as a sign of our commitment to God and to one another. Let us take our offering this morning. Generous and loving God, we give back to you part of what you have given to us. We want to do more than simply praise you with our hearts and our hands. We want to praise you by the way we love and care for one another. Take and use our gifts to bring healing in our world. Amen. Our closing hymn is More Love to You, O Christ. Church family, our God invites us to notice the hospitality around us in this world and to be a part of that. Our God invites us to be those who create space and create opportunity where people can be fed and loved. May we be the people who host those parties. Our worship is ended. Let our service begin. see the dance group is not stopping back by to put the chairs up. So if you would help us by, if we can put ours up as we go, that would be great if you're able to do that. And Anna and Bill have vegetables back there for the sharing. So if you'd like to go home with some fresh produce, they right along with the sermon. We're in good shape here. Well, thank you.